Okay, this meeting is coming to order. We will turn the time over to Chair Huntsman for an additional standards and assessment committee recommendation. Chair Hansen, I'm sorry, I was just talking to Chair Huntsman. Chair Hansen. Have to do it on this one?
There we go. Okay, we held an additional Standards and Assessment Committee to consider the resources for implementation of R277328, educational equity in schools. And the motion that comes from that committee, I think I have it here. Oh. There we go. Is that the board approve the resources for implementation of R277328, educational equity in schools document. And Chair, with your permission, I'd also like to make a motion that we divide the question and consider each of the slides individually as we consider this motion. I can speak to the motion.
We have a motion on the floor to divide the question and a second by Board Member Straight. And please speak to the motion.
Yeah, as we go forward, I know that this doesn't sound too appealing from the get-go, but we have several people who've taken the time to make extensive revisions and changes to the language. If one of those is adopted all the way through and then we have to consider the other one, it will be trying to amend language that may have already been amended. And I think it will result in kind of a mess for us as far as trying to sort through all that. So I believe if we do this in chunks so that we're considering all the language on each slide, that we can be more efficient in getting to the end of this road.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to divide the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. I would like to move forward and, so do I need to take a motion on each slide even if there are no amendments? One slide at a time.
You could probably do slide 1 and 2 together then.
Okay. Do you want to move slide 1 and 2 since there's no suggestions? Go ahead.
Oh, hold on. You didn't click your button. I'm sorry. I didn't, but you haven't clicked your button yet still.
I did.
She pulled it over to here. Do we need to move it over to there?
No, it should pop up here.
Yes. Board Member Hymas, you need to hit your button.
You know what? Your requests have all come into, okay, I found them. Scott first, and then, or do you want Board Member Hymas?
Why don't you ask your question, Board Member Hymas?
There.
Just quickly, this is when we say slide 1 and 2 and 3, whatever, we're simply referring to the slide notes, not the slide themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, the slides were adopted in the previous meeting.
And so today we're just amending notes.
Slide notes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We adopted the slides last time around.
Yeah, but I meant to amend the slide.
Okay.
I have another clarifying question.
Okay, clarifying question.
I want to know, the language in the rule says this is a model. Now, in education speak, a model is something that an LEA then takes and uses consistent with its circumstances. And it's not something that is scripted and used exactly as written. So I'm wondering, and that's the way I would read this, that an LEA trainer takes this and makes sure that her training is consistent with the ideas and phrases that are in here, but is not necessarily, her examples are not identical. Maybe she doesn't even do it in the same order.
My understanding is that that this is a model training for the board rule and that LEAs can either use this model or they can do their training that's, covers all of these points.
Okay.
Is my understanding correct, or is there something in board language that changes that? Jeff, Director Van Holten?
Yes, Jeff Van Holten, Director of Public Affairs. So the clarification on that, in the rule, you did pass language that said when there is a model training which would accomplish, or trainings, I should say, with plural, that accomplishes all the purposes of the rule, those models would be developed and approved by the board. This is not that. This is a training about the rule, not about the things the rule would require you to train on, if that makes sense. So we haven't even gotten there yet. That will be coming later.
So you can still answer my question, if I may, Chair.
Verbatim.
Can I?
Please,
ask that,
Board
Chair?
Member Lear.
So can I ask, so a trainer could use this and use her own words and use her own examples. She has to script and do every single thing that this says. I think that's ridiculous and unrealistic and insulting to teachers or trainers. I don't know what we were thinking. Because I think that, and it's, let's just have a staff for R277-328 that equals school fees. Because we would need a staff of 20 to monitor every LEA to make sure that they are not.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my rant.
All right. Can we take slide 1 and 2? Do we have a motion since there were no
Don't think I was able to
changes?
get the motion out.
Okay, go
But I
ahead.
will. I move that the board adopt slide numbers 1 and 2 as written without amendment.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to adopt slides 1 and 2 as written, as amended.
Janet seconded.
Second, Board Member Cannon. Seeing no discussion, please vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously.
Moving right along.
I was waiting for a ranter over there.
I can't believe we are doing this. I'm embarrassed for us.
We can all converse. Yes, there are probably a lot of reasons. So in number 3, we're moving on to slide 3. I'm open to motions. Board Member Hymas, looks like. Board Member Hymas?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we accept slide 3 with the amended verbiage, whatever we want to call it. But, and then I'd like to speak to the motion, if I could.
Can we say it that way, or does he need to say the exact language? It hasn't been amended yet. It's only been proposed. Could he say as proposed? Or does he have to read the language of what's taken out and what's being added?
I'd like to make a motion that we scratch equitable access and apply equal, and then scratch equitable and add equal.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to take out the words equitable access and replace it with equal, and take out the word equitable and replace it with equal. Seeing no discussion,
I'd like to discuss as well, but
okay, Board Member Hymas?
thank you. I'd like to speak to this. First off, equitable access, we don't offer equitable access anywhere, and I don't know if that's even possible. And so to say that, and I understand that this is a note, please note the expectation is equitable access and equal and opportunities. That's not the expectation. I don't know if we've ever discussed as a board equitable access. Is it in there? Did I miss it somewhere? That's okay. That's okay. And so I want to change it to say, please note the expectation is equal opportunities for students, not equal outcomes, which I believe further aligns with what we had, the intent of what we had.
Might I ask a clarifying question? So when you say equal opportunities, the definition of equal, like in the dictionary, is the same. So you're saying that the expectation is to give students the same opportunities? Or
Yeah, well,
do equitable?
does equitable fit better there? Is that what you're saying?
Do equitable practices lead to more equal opportunities? I don't know what your intent is here. Equal means same to me, but.
Right, and the
What's your
intent
intent?
was to remove equitable access. I have individuals in different parts of the district that I represent that do not have equitable access. And I would love to get there, but they don't. I mean, the reality is as I sit here before two screens that are easily accessible, that's not a possibility for some. So that's why I went to remove that. Now, if we define equal as the same opportunities, that's our goal, right, is to give everybody the same opportunity. However, it's not the same outcome.
Thank you, Board Member Lear.
Maybe we're not as far apart as I thought, but equal opportunity says to me same opportunity. And a student with disabilities doesn't have the same opportunity to walk upstairs and get to the second floor that a student who doesn't have a physical limitation. But an equitable opportunity, and so if it's equitable, if it's substituting equitable for equal, in my mind, equitable means that that student with disabilities has an opportunity to take an elevator and still get to the second floor. So he doesn't have the same opportunity, but he has one that gives him the same chance to get to the second floor. So that's why I prefer equitable to equal, but I don't object to equitable opportunity as opposed to equitable access, which is sort of a conflating, I think, of two terms.
Thank you, Board Member Belknap. Vice Chair Belknap, I should say.
Thanks, Chair. I actually kind of tend to agree with Carol in this case. If you look at the definition up above, it tells us what equitable means and versus being equal. And lots of times the term equitable is getting hijacked, but I think in this case it isn't because the definition is up above.
Thank you, Board Member Moss.
I was just going to point out that we do use the term equal opportunities as our, commitment in the slide itself, so that's consistent with the amendment.
And I've already got the mic.
Board Member Hanson.
Yeah, thanks. I think the intent here was to just emphasize what was already in the definition above, which, equitable resources to provide equal opportunities and not equal outcomes. So I agree. I think that's a typo at the bottom where so it was not supposed to be equal outcomes. So I would agree with that part. But the first part was just supposed to say we're going to provide equitable access and equal opportunities, I guess. If you look at our definition, it says we'll provide the resources necessary to get equal opportunity.
Would it be friendly to change that to for, so it makes sense?
Equitable
We'll
access
provide
for
equitable access for equal
opportunities.
opportunities for students not at equal
Or
outcomes.
equitable support for supports for equal opportunities.
Okay, so let's stick to where we are. Are you amending the motion?
Yeah, that would be my requested amendment.
Okay. Did you have a second? Oh, could you restate it? Board Member Hanson?
So please note that the expectation is equitable, I'll change that to supports for equal opportunities for students.
And not equal
Not
outcomes.
equal outcomes.
Okay. And there's a second on the floor. There's a motion on the floor to change the last line of slide 3 to read equitable support for access and equal opportunities for students, not equal outcomes. And we have a second with Board Member Lear.
No, I'm sorry, access is stricken.
But it's stricken.
I don't think I did. Anyway.
Sorry. Support is in place of access. I apologize. Board Member Earl, are you speaking to this amendment or the other one? I don't know now. Okay. Seeing no discussion on this amendment, please vote. Those in favor?
Support or supports? I'm just clarifying.
No, what word do you use normally in the vernacular?
Equitable support for equal opportunities. Equitable support for equal
I could
opportunities.
go either way. If an S belongs, it does say,
No S.
it does say up above initiatives and supports. So,
Okay, but she already fixed me.
all right.
Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Chair.
Well, wait a minute.
And now we're back to the original motion. I said no. Board Member Klein said no. Opposed. Thank you.
But Matt, we're not done yet.
You guys are so fast.
We're not done. Push your light again. Push your light again, because we're not done with it. It's now back to that, which you can amend it.
Yes, okay, Board Member Hymus.
Thank you. I think it reads clunky. It could just be me. I would love to, at least if we got rid of for students even, please note the expectation is equitable support for opportunities,
Thank
not
you. Do you have a
equal
second
outcomes.
to that motion? To remove the words for students?
Does that work?
Do we have a second to that motion? I'll second. Thank you. To Board Member Earl. Seeing no discussion. There is a motion on the floor
Does that work?
to remove the words "for students." So it will read less clunky. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
That motion passes with Board Member Hanson opposed.
I'm a no.
And Board Member Lear opposed. So we're moving on to slide 4. I'll take motions. Board Member Belknap,
Yes, I just want a clarifying comment, please.
please.
That this is training for trainers to give to teachers. It's not anywhere else. Trainers to give to teachers. I just like us to remember that.
Okay. Slide 4, motions.
Scott making all of these?
No, this,
Who has what? Who
the
has
people who've got amendments will make the motions.
We're in slide 4.
Okay, so that's Matt. Oh, that's Carol?
Or,
And
do
you.
you want me just to make a motion to adopt it without the amendments? And then I think
Well,
that's
Board Member
messy.
Hymus has got his light on now. Board Member
Okay.
Hymus.
I'd like to, I forget the verbiage, what we're supposed to say here, but I'd like to make a motion that we adopt slide 4 with amendments that are on the screen. I need to, so,
Yeah.
can I speak to the motion if I get a second?
Let's look at all of the,
I can tell you that the first 3 are, they were just copy and pasted from slide 3. That's what I saw on there, and I thought it was just a typo, so I just thought we should get rid of that. Yeah, the top 3 are the same. It was just repeated.
Okay, so the top 3 were a repeat from slide 3 that you thought was repetitious and should be taken out of slide 4. And then,
I guess my question, was it an accident? If it's on purpose, I don't know why it would be.
Chair Hansen?
Yeah, I believe that it's just a paste error, so
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think as an editorial, I think we can just dispense with those with no objection to any.
With no objection,
Yeah.
we are dispensing with the repetition. So go ahead with your other amendment, or motion.
I moved that I'm just going to say in the first bullet point, can I do that? Or
Yes.
So in the first bullet point, I would like to add, I'd like to move that we add, or a guest speaker visits the school, and then strike the term them and include families, and then instead of children, plural. And I'm happy to speak to that motion if there's
Please.
any concern.
Well, first, we have a motion on the floor, and you're okay if I just say to adopt the changes in orange on slide 4? Are you okay if I say that? There's a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in orange on slide 4. Do we have a second? Board Member Klein and Board Member Hymas?
Just quickly, or a guest speaker visits the school. This actually happened in a school in my district where a guest speaker came in. The families weren't aware of what was going to be talked about, and I don't even know if the principal was completely aware. It was kind of between the teacher and it caused quite a concern, and so I think it would be helpful to have added to this list, if we do invite an outside, if an LEA invites an outside visitor, they kind of have an idea of what is going to be discussed. And then families and children, I won't speak to that, but.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in, sorry, we had one more discussion, 2 more. Carol, Board Member Lear.
I just, if we're about clunky language, these 4 areas are being emphasized. These 4 areas are emphasized because they are important for successful implementation.
Okay.
These 4 areas are emphasized because they are important for successful implementation.
So I'm going to ask a question. Since that wordsmithing doesn't change anything substantively, Chair Hansen, are you okay if people submit those to you for consideration or to Deputy Superintendent Norman? Or
I think that's.
because if we do this in this meeting, we'll be here till midnight.
Non-substantive changes, if they just went to staff and then we can give it, I can give it a read through if people will give me that responsibility and just say that this doesn't change it in substance. And
Are you comfortable with that, Board Member Lear?
I am, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, seeing no more discussion, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in orange in slide number 4. Those in favor, please vote. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Deputy Superintendent Norman?
Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement, Patty Norman. I just wanted to make a clarification, hopefully, and then have the board be able to discuss this. The intention of this was that it wasn't necessarily a training being given by a trainer. No, it's okay. The intention of this is that it was going to be an animated video that would be provided and being given 24/7 access. So as we're making any of these wording changes, as you are making any of these wording changes, please know that the staff that will be reading this directly into the microphone and animating it will only use these words. So sometimes, for example, when it says on there, let's start with the definition of educational equity, that may sound like additional language that doesn't need to be in there, but if you're watching a video, that's engaging language so that you continue to engage with the video itself. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, so Deputy Superintendent Norman, so slide 3 and slide 4 say the exact same thing. So that was just a repetition, right? But in general, that conversational language you're asking us to consider to keep because it's going to be a video. Thank you. Board Member Belknap.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks to Patty for correcting me, which I really appreciate, by the way. On the next section where it's in red, I want to remove reflective of family values and change it to be responsive to respective parent guardian input.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay. Board Member Earl, thank you. We have a motion on the floor to amend slide 4 as indicated in red. Do we have discussion? Board Member Hansen, Chair Hansen.
thank you. Just on the word respective, is that respectful? So is it, input that's given in a
So
respectful way?
one parent
or
can't
is it-
make one parent can't make a request for all of the students, but if a parent says, that movie you're going to show next week, my other son saw it, it's fine for him, but for her, developmentally, I don't think she's quite ready for it. Can she, do something different? It would be respective to their own child.
To each student? Okay, is that clear to everyone from the language? I understand the intent, that's fine, I just don't know.
I think it is.
Okay, it's clear?
Thank you.
Fine.
Seeing no further discussion, please vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. We're moving on to slide 5.
Do you need to do the whole?
I don't think, do we need to go back? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Chair Hansen.
Hit your thing.
Motion to approve slide 4 as amended.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table to approve slide 4 as amended. Board Member Earl?
Not slide 4, I'm sorry, I thought you were
going on Okay. to
slide 5.
Okay, please vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Let's move on to slide 5. Seeing nothing in color and no changes, will you make the motion to, do you have one?
I have a question.
A question, please, Board Member Earl?
So my question, and I've asked this of Patty, and she sent me information on, but I just have a question when we're talking about creating collaborative norms and then establishing discussion protocols, including language frames on how to agree and disagree respectfully. I just have a concern that we're regimenting the way we engage with one another. I have a concern with that. So it's this idea that we're going to construct the norms that collaboration looks like. I'm not sure, and Patty sent me, the things that she sent me, I thought were great, but I just don't know how those get changed down the road. Does that make sense? So I don't know if there's any response to that. I just have concerns over those two pieces of language.
It won't get changed because it'll be written exactly like this.
I'm not talking
in the video.
this, I'm talking the definition of it or the intent of it when they use it.
The interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Do you have an amendment? Please, Board Member Lear.
Is this the kind of thing that somebody could submit to Scott? I don't see this as substantive.
It would be substantive
Yeah.
if you change the definition of creating collaborative norms, which typically means,
It's jargony.
how to work together in a group.
It's jargony, but it's not, but the idea is work together in a group, or,
Educators,
Well,
no, we're
my
good.
motion would be to strike them.
no.
That's why I'm asking if there's,
Are you making a
I'm
motion?
making a motion to strike those two lines.
Okay, 2 lines?
Well, it's the B and C.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor in slide 5 to strike 1B and 1C. Do we have a second?
No.
Board Member Klein is a second. Discussion to the motion? Board Member Hutchings?
I actually like having this in here because it's very common in classroom activities to set norms when they're collaborating and to say, this is appropriate, we're modeling appropriate collaboration. And it's very helpful for a teacher and to be able to have a really beneficial exchange among students if they establish, we speak to each other respectfully and have just a few norms so they understand what they're supposed to do in the classroom and how they're supposed to behave in that exchange. So as a classroom teacher, it's very helpful and a good practice to establish norms for those activities. And as a teacher, that's what it's reminding me to do.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, we have a motion on the table to remove 1B and 1C from slide 5. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
No.
That motion passes with Board Member Earl opposed.
No, it doesn't.
In favor?
It failed.
That motion fails with Board Member Earl in favor. Thank you.
Just so opposite.
Slide 6.
So
to make a
motion,
motion?
motion then, if it's open for me, yes. Motion to adopt slide 5 as presented. I don't think it was amended.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt slide 5, and Board Member Lear was the second, if you got that. And those, Board Member Earl?
Yeah, I actually have I have a motion if it's there. Maybe? Is there? Are we on 5? I'm sorry.
I didn't see any purple in that one.
You know,
I know. We all wish we were ahead. Slide- We're with you, Board Member Earl.
Hold me back.
I'll try.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt slide 5 on the floor. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Slide 6, Board Member Earl.
Hit your light.
So I would like to strike 2 words. It's where it says maximize, yeah, there you go, benefit and outcomes, just so it's simple. It's just crafted and developed in a way that maximizes better teaching practices.
Thank you.
Maximize.
Where are we?
Maximize. Way that maximizes. Maximizes.
Yeah, there's just a typo. The should be a that, and that's not substantive, so maybe we can submit that for a change.
Yeah, it's out.
It's out. So there's a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in purple in slide 6. Did we have a second?
Second.
No, there's nothing else. This is the only colored, this is only a submitted change. Seeing no other discussion, that was Board Member Belknap as a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion passes unanimously. Slide,
No, now we're to Scott.
no, back to Scott.
Scott.
I don't think we are, sorry. There's some changes on 7.
Oh, we're still on 6. You gotta do the whole thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that we adopt slide 6 as amended.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt slide 6 as amended. Board Member Straight. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Slide 7.
Are some changes there.
If you have a color on the screen, push your button now. Board Member, I missed the pumpkin color change.
I love pumpkin.
It's fitting
Thank you.
for the season.
Yes. I would have wore a pumpkin
Oh,
shirt.
actually, you know what? Did you already, I can't
No,
remember.
we were doing each color first and then.
And then you're going to do the whole thing. Okay, go
I
ahead.
I guess I have a question first, because you'll see in section 6 right there, the line, it says, I'd like to strike with peers without disabilities. However, this is a definition of inclusion. So I don't know if I can strike that without having to change the entire definition. Yeah,
It says the board has defined.
Yeah, I think the board has.
Yeah, that definition is actually in 328, so you would need to amend the rule.
Okay. So I will withdraw my, yeah, my pumpkin.
Okay. But you have more pumpkin on
Take
this.
the pumpkin off the porch.
Yes, I do, but it's, what did we call it? It's not substan, what I've done is I've taken, so the slide, we don't have a copy of the slide. You see that I cut out the bottom as they pertain, and I just moved it to the top, so it's more consistent with the slide. And then I changed, these would consist of the following practices. So I haven't,
Without objection, can we make that placement shift?
But I reserve the right to rethink the grammar of it when I.
Of course you do.
Yes,
okay.
the ranter reserves the right to rearrange. That's alliteration for you right there. Board Member Earl, I see some purple.
What is the official purple color?
Purple.
What are we calling that?
That one, I
Grape or
think, is just,
grape, I don't know. Anyways,
oh, lavender. It's called
lavender. So
on
the lavender
sheet.
color's mine. So I want to insert welcoming students to the class giving each student authentic feedback, respecting religious dress and observation, asking, did I get that? Is that right?
Observance.
So is that what you want to insert, just that respecting
Hang on.
religious dress and observance?
No. And respectfully, yeah. I don't think I don't want, I need to strike welcoming each student's point of view in class discussions. So it would say respectfully engaging in the thoughtful expression of beliefs and ideas.
So that's not in purple. So can you read the whole thing the way it would read to us?
Yeah, so it just, okay, yes. So it would say welcoming students to the class, giving each student authentic feedback, respecting religious dress and observance, and respectfully engaging in the thoughtful expression of thought, beliefs, and ideas.
So there's a motion on the floor to change slide 7 to read, respecting religious dress and observance, asking and respectfully engaging in the free expression of beliefs and ideas.
Hold on.
Do we have a second?
Respectfully
She took out
engaging in
welcoming.
the thoughtful expression. So let me see, I didn't sound the same. And respectfully engaging in the, instead of free, it's thoughtful. Yeah, right there, thoughtful.
Engaging in the thoughtful expression of beliefs and ideas.
Yep.
And removing welcoming each student's point of view in class discussions. Do we have a second? Who was? Board Member Moss. That was already there. That's not part of her.
And can I speak
Discussion
to
to the
that?
motion, Board Member Earl.
Yeah, I just think, just a little more clarity on as far as the expression of ideas and being thoughtful versus just what free expression or whatever. And we need to, just that idea of being more thoughtful. But we've articulated many, throughout this, we give little examples of things that we should be paying attention to. And this is one area, respecting religious dress and observance, especially with a variety of cultures that we have in the state of Utah. That just so that we're, throughout the whole document, we're addressing those key little issues, and we do that. So I think this is a perfect spot to add this in.
Could I ask a question?
Yes,
The
please.
maker of the motion.
Chair Hansen.
Why are we striking welcoming each student's point of view in class discussions? I can see the reasoning behind the other changes, but can you explain that one?
Please, Board Member Earl.
Well, I think we have, I don't know, I guess I was looking at a variety of words because we've got welcoming students, and it was just welcoming again. Do you know what I mean? So it was looking at that variation, trying to create a, and that respectful dialogue versus the welcoming. I don't know, I felt like that was maybe more appropriate for students, so.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Board Member Earl, or sorry, Lear.
Arrange those words. I'm mostly there. I am not a fan of and not in favor of respecting religious dress and observance, because if we have that, we have to also have respecting those who don't believe in religion. We have to respect those who wear God is dead t-shirts. And that is equally important and respectful. So I think if you leave that out, then it's respectful for everyone. And there are legitimately parents who want no religious, who would be anti-religion and might want to express that point of view in a class. A student might. So I
Okay.
think that's deserving of respect also.
Thank you. Board Member Moss.
I'll just address the part of respecting religious dress and observance. I would agree with, Member Lear that non-religious, whatever, but that's one I have particular interest in from refugee community, where I do some legal work, where they're concerned that their hijab or whatever is not respected. And I think it's a vulnerable population that needs some very specific reminders to respect that, and if that means that you also respect those who don't have that, it's, you know. She's the maker of the motion, but I'll just speak in favor of keeping the religious dress and observance part, and whatever other neutrality needs to be added, I would favor.
Okay, hit your light if you want to make an amendment. Thank you, Board Member Lear.
Giving each student authentic feedback, respecting religious dress and observance and non-religious dress and observance, or anti-religious dress and observance. Because there, again,
What is that? You're talking about a headscarf or something when?
no, I'm talking about a God is Dead t-shirt. I'm talking about a Day of the Dead excuse to be gone from school. I'm talking about
prayer.
anything that is an atheist's point
Yeah,
of
it can't be
view
anti.
that it deserves equal respect. That's why I prefer, even though I hear what you're saying, Jim, I prefer leaving it out because we should respect every student's point of view. And not just religious dress and observance, but religious symbols and religious language and religious
And then
nicknames and religious pronouns.
I know, it's a problem with school prayer.
Cultural and
I
religious.
agree. That's tough, I don't know.
So it's
Point of
not-
order.
So it's not anti-religious, right?
Well, it's non-religious, then non-religious, is what I said, Scott.
Sorry, Board Member Hutchings, could you use your microphone a little bit closer and repeat that?
Could we vote on the lavender amendments first and then the green amendments, since they come from two different board members?
Unless she's amending the amendment. Are you amending the amendment, Board Member? Actually, you'd be amending the motion. Are you amending the motion?
I am amending the motion.
Okay, do you have a second? Do we have a second? What is the amendment?
It would say, respecting religious and non-religious dress and observance. So that.
Can you say it in your microphone so we can hear?
Well, I can't read it and say it at the same time. That's a problem. I can't read that.
Carol, it's right there.
I would say respectfully, no, giving each student authentic feedback, respecting religious and non-religious dress and observance.
We have an amendment on the floor. Do we have a second? Do not have a second.
I can warn you, we're going to have some lawsuits then over that, because that's a fairly important protection.
I think that could be a possibility. I don't know. Okay. Board Member Norton?
I'm just wondering if non-religious isn't a religion in and of itself.
I think the people who are absent.
An absence of religion.
Right.
Okay. I was hoping we had a compromise there.
Respecting religious and secular?
Yeah, but that might be, although, yeah, I think
Is
that
that a
might be
word
good.
that might work?
Board Member Straight?
I don't believe the word religion was in our original draft, right? So if I'm looking at it here, I'm trying to read it. These would consist of the following practices, but are not limited to welcoming students to the class, giving each student authentic feedback, and maintaining high expectations for all students as they pertain to students and educators with diverse abilities and backgrounds. When I look at that, that's like this. It includes everything. But when I start adding in religion this, religion that, or non-religious, now we're going like this. We're focusing on something which it's not even close to the intent of where we were at. This is about inclusion. This is about accepting all students from any background, any diverse, which includes religion. But if you narrow it down to religion now, it doesn't include that. So
Maybe it should be that.
let's
Do you have an amendment?
just keep that part.
So just, he's speaking against the amendment.
I mean, I don't know.
Speaking against the amendment. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just speaking against
We
it.
still have some lights on. Board Member Earl.
Sorry, my fault, Jenny, my fault.
Just in all the other pieces of this, we now have to start doing the back and forth. Because we've targeted certain entities throughout our document because we're seeing concerns there. That's why we brought those up. So this is one of the reasons why I added this here, because this is an area of concern. It's not meant to be. And I understand, well, we've got to have both the yin and the yang or whatever here. Well, then we have to do it to everything, is all I'm saying. And if we want to remove it here, that's fine. It is a concern we're seeing. That's all I'm trying to point out. And I thought we were trying to address some of those concerns so that there was a mention of them. It's not meant to deteriorate or take away from or to belittle someone with a different belief. And I don't know, maybe this isn't the right spot for that. So maybe we put it in with an example
So
somewhere.
you agree with
Hanson?
me?
What about that?
Oh, sorry, and then I've got you guys,
I'm
you two
sorry.
coming over.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
I'm
ahead, Chair
sorry, I
Hanson.
can't- I've already got it live, so I.
I know you
did it, so
can't- I know.
apologize. But I wonder if, so I know some of the other places Jenny's talking about, we use certain circumstances or things as examples. And I think using something as an example is different than calling it out in the text, where we don't have to cover everything in the examples. So if we wanted to have an example that was dealing with religious dress, like if, some respecting someone who wore a headscarf or something like that, we might be able to deal with it as an example without getting into the legal trouble that Carol's talking about.
So if, are you going to withdraw this amendment and then start looking for that other spot?
I still would like the language at the end, the striking of welcoming each student's point of view. You've got welcome and welcome again, and anyways, where it's respectful, engaging in the thoughtful expression of beliefs and ideas, even if we didn't do the other. I'm fine with
Okay.
taking that out and using an example somewhere else, as
Okay.
an example.
There's, I'll restate that motion, but it's basically then going to read, that the motion will be on the floor, to read, engaging in the thoughtful expression of beliefs and ideas instead of welcoming each student's point of view in class discussions. Is that correct? Okay, Board Member Norton.
And maybe that just changed what I was going to say. I was just going to say, would it be possible to amend religion and instead use the word cultural?
Then, are you making an amendment?
Beliefs in there.
Or do you want to move forward with this? I mean,
They took out that whole dressing.
okay. Okay, Board Member Moss?
Yes, I think religious protection is important. I think it's different from culture. I think it needs protection, deserves protection. It's called out. So I don't know why it's controversial to point out that religious dress and observance needs to be respected. But I'll bring it back at another spot.
In the examples or something. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to amend slide 8 to read, slide 7 to read, engaging in the free expression of beliefs and ideas instead of welcoming each student's point of view in class discussion. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion,
It was.
that motion passes unanimously, even though possibly unintentionally.
So then, are you looking for you're looking for a
So-
motion to adopt slide 7 as
Yes,
amended?
please.
That motion, I just made it.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to adopt slide 7 as amended. Those in favor say
Gotta
aye.
have a second?
Oh, wait, I need a second. Board Member Cannon, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Slide number 8, Board Member Hymas.
I'd like to just move that we just add the word unbiased in there. All right,
Okay,
Carol.
go ahead and, do we have a second?
Okay, okay.
Do we have a second on this amendment? Board Member Klein, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I'll speak to it just for a second, out of redundancy. The reason I put in here unbiased is because I can watch CNN and get facts from the CDC, and I can watch Fox News and get facts from the CDC, and it's all evidence, but it's all biased. And so I don't know what it looks like for a trainer and teacher, but I use the term unbiased because I want it in their brains. I don't know, maybe you go to the BBC and get your news from them. They don't care about America, right? They just, unbiased just is something in the brain that says, okay, I need to look at this at a different point of view. I need to set my standards aside and look at this differently.
Thank you, Board Member Lear.
I don't, it's not something I would fall on my sword about, but it feels like unbiased is in the eye of the beholder. And I feel like somebody, again, would look at that and say, that it's kind of laughable. So I would probably leave it just with evidence and let the teacher be the judge of evidence and hope she knows what she's doing when she's providing information. I'm fine. I changed my mind.
I have a question. Is it possible to find unbiased evidence?
That's the old thing.
Everything's written by the victor.
Evidence is supposed to be.
Okay, we're seeing no other discussion. We have a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in orange in slide 8. Those in favor say aye.
Evidence that supports you.
Those opposed?
No.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a no too. So let's, those of us who are noes, raise your hand. Okay, that would be Board Member Hanson, Board Member Straight, Board Member Lear, Board Member Moss, Board Member Huntsman, Board Member Davis. That motion passes?
Oh, I don't know, because we're one short.
What happened?
Oh, 7 and 7. That motion fails.
Who else is gone?
That motion fails.
Oh, Molly's not here either.
Where's Molly? Molly, are you a yes or a no on unbiased? Do you want it to read, that teachers use rational, open-minded, and informed by unbiased evidence?
There's no such thing, but yes, I actually do.
If there's no such thing, are we asking them to do the?
Well, because I want it in their head.
That motion passes.
To try.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
Was I the swing?
We're ready for Board Member Hanson.
Okay, if I must. Motion that we adopt slide 8 as amended.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adopt slide 8 as amended. Those in favor, say aye. So we need a second. Janet, second. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? No. I don't think it's possible. So Board Member Davis and Board Member Straight. Not that I don't think it's ideal and would be wonderful. I
Okay,
actually think it should
Motion
be.
to accept slide 10 as written. Excuse me,
9.
slide 9, I'm sorry.
We have a motion on the floor to accept slide 9 as written, and we have no amendments. Do we have a second? Okay, Board Member Cannon. Seeing no discussion, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Slide 10. More of those, please.
Yes, motion to accept slide 10 as presented or as written.
There's a motion on the floor to accept slide 10 as written. Do we have a second? Board Member Cannon. Seeing no discussion, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Board Member Hanson, or Chair Hanson.
I think slide 11, we have some comment.
Changes, oh, that's Stacy.
So let's move straight over to Board Member Hutchings.
Okay, I would like to strike on slide.
Stacy, will you pull your mic a little closer?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll sit closer too. I'd like to strike the part that says, or because of any racism among the founding fathers. I think this is supposed to be a model of behavior we're expecting from teachers. It is a fact that there were slaveholding founding fathers, but it passes historical judgment on character to say they were racist.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to accept the changes in yellow to slide 11. Do we have a second? Board Member Straight is a second. And would you like to speak to it, Board Member Hutchings? Seeing no discussion, please vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Board Member Earl? Lavender?
And it looks like there's some other little changes there. Is that just to make it? Okay, yeah, okay. So this example, an example of this would be discriminating against a student or educator because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. I just think it needs to match law, and that's the wording that's in our Utah law and statutes. So.
Thank you. There is a motion on the floor to adopt the changes in lavender. Do we have a second?
Second.
Board Member Straight and Board Member Moss.
Sorry, no, after this.
And Board Member Chair Huntsman. Sorry, that's me being you. I apologize. Board Member Lear.
Just because we're here right now, without objection, against a gay student or educator because of the individual's sexual orientation or gender identity. They're both singular, and it's an or, so it should be the individual instead of there.
Okay, is that friendly to you? That's a friendly, without objection. We will amend with that language of the individual. Lavender says yes, and seeing no other discussion, there's a motion on the floor to accept the changes in lavender with the friendly suggestion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously.
Are you still on this? one?
Motion,
Are you going on the next one?
Okay, slide number
You got Board
no,
Member Moss.
we're not
We
ready for mine
do,
yet on 11.
I don't see another
You're
color.
going to do something to 11?
Board Member Moss has something before he.
Board Member Moss. I don't have a color here. Everything's color coded.
I'm going to try to transfer.
Board Member Moss.
Great. This might be a good spot for the part that was deleted prior. So I'd bring a motion at the end of gender identity or because of an individual's religious or non-religious dress or observance. I think that kind of fits.
Oh, there is a motion on the floor to add an example to the second bullet, are you saying? To this, which bullet?
Sure.
The first bullet?
Actually, go on the first, it's better.
That's the first.
There's a motion on the floor to add an example to slide 11 that reads, tell us again.
It reads, after gender identity, comma, or because of an individual's religious or non-religious dress or observance.
We have a color for that.
It was
Okay.
lavender, so it's still lavender. It's just
Okay,
moving
lavender
around.
too. We have a motion on the floor to accept the changes, the additional changes in lavender. We need a second. Second, Chair Huntsman. And Board Member Klein?
So I just have a question about the religious or non-religious dress or observance. Could that conflict with school dress codes? Could some people use that to justify breaking school dress code?
Board Member Moss, do you want to address that question?
this discrimination because of dress or observance that is based on religious or non-religious ideas. It's not meant to be an exception. I mean, courts deal with that. You have to not discriminate because somebody wears it. That doesn't mean.
Should
it
we add that
qualifies
word,
things.
that word in based on religious or non-religious ideas?
No.
Or
Well, dress
observance?
The idea is to protect dress or observance. Again, this is coming from folks that are showing up in a hijab and they're being mocked or belittled. And I understand from Member Lear, it's important to include non-religious, but
Okay.
it's the dress or observance that just kind of point out that at least raises a need.
Yes, thank you.
Within policy.
Thank you.
Maybe you add within policy. I don't know.
Board Member Lear?
Well, I think, beat it up, but in,
Carol, I don't have you for some reason.
oh, because I turned up that. In the cases on school dress codes, that they give really a lot of deference to religious symbols. And also like a God is Dead T-shirt, and a CTR ring, and those kinds of things, as long as it doesn't cause disruption.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, there's a motion on the table to accept the amendments, the additional amendments in purple for slide 11. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to Chair Hansen.
Yeah, motion to accept the notes for slide 11 as amended.
There's a motion with the second by Board Member Cannon. There's a motion on the floor to accept slide 11 as amended. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. We're getting closer and there's no color in 12.
Motion to.
Yes.
Motion to accept the notes for slide 12 as presented.
There's a motion on the floor to accept slide 12 as amended. Is there a second? Board Member Cannon? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously.
And that one was not amended, so
That
just,
one wasn't amended.
yeah, I think Sybil's catching that, but.
Just
Yeah.
past slide 12. I looked at those lines through and wasn't thinking that wasn't
Yeah,
from
we
this
should have
meeting.
had a cleaner copy, because this has the amendments from committee.
From committee, yeah. No, I should have just remembered. I knew it. I just for a second slipped. Slide 13, Board Member Hymas.
No. No,
No, I have to
will
read.
not.
I'm used to just push and go. I move that we add the term enrolled simply for clarity. We have many families that are in districts or boundaries that do not attend or are not enrolled in the school. And so if it pleases the board, if they are enrolled, they can make suggestions. If not, then probably they should make them where they are attending school. And I don't know if that needs further clarification.
Thank
but-
you. There's a motion on the floor to amend slide 13 to add the word enrolled. And we need a second. Board Member Lear, and discussion to the motion. I think we just did have discussion from Board Member Heinemus, unless you want more. Board Member Belknap?
I guess I have a question here. Are you talking about, for clarification, Chair, are you talking about where they can view this or that they can give feedback on it? Because you may have students who school at home, who aren't enrolled in that school, who don't have an access to this, but they may want to have the opportunity to give their opinions. I'm just curious.
The sentence reads, please note that the parent must have a student enrolled in the school or LEA in order to make a request that merits providing the professional learning materials. So if we did have a homeschooler, they probably wouldn't need to provide professional learning, make a request that merits providing professional learning materials. If they're dual enrolled, then yeah. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to add the word enrolled to slide 13. Those in favor say yes. Aye.
Or yes.
Or yes. Let's try that again. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to Chair Hansen.
Okay, motion to accept the notes for slide 13 as amended.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to accept the slide 13 as amended. Those in favor say aye.
Oh, you need a second.
Oh, second.
Janet.
Board Member Cannon. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion passes unanimously.
Midnight.
Motion to accept slide 14 as, the notes for slide 14 as presented.
There's a motion on the floor to accept slide 14 as presented. Do we have a second? Board Member Cannon? Please, Board Member Lear, discussion to the motion?
Placeholder comment. I just want to make sure, a number of people have told me that this is a really poor choice of a rule to have a appeals process in. And then I was told that the rule is being revisited. I would love to have the title of that rule changed so that it reflects what people are looking for. It doesn't look like just a fiscal appeals process. And that's just a placeholder. We don't need to change it in the moment, but I hope that we will remember.
Note for later.
Yep.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor to accept slide we're on 14? 14. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Slide 15. Oh, who is that?
I
Ew,
will,
Board Member Hanson.
that's me. I was some kind of goldenrod or something on this.
Chair Hanson, you are caramel. Caramel. That's what it
Caramel.
says on the document.
Sounds
Caramel.
good.
This is a fall theme.
Okay. I move that we amend the notes for slide 15 to include the language that's in Carmel. So it would read, as mentioned on this slide, parents should not be using the complaint process or other means to dox, bully, cyberbully, or commit abusive conduct against an educator. Then also go up a little bit, please, whoever's running that. I noticed that it says Wikipedia there. That should be stricken from that. That was a source note. Then going down a couple of paragraphs, we'll add the paragraph that says Utah Code 53G 9601 defines bullying and cyberbullying. Bullying means a school employee or student intentionally committing a written, verbal, or physical act against a school employee or student that a reasonable person under the circumstances should know or reasonably foresee will have the effect of causing physical or emotional harm to the school employee or student, causing damage to the school employee or student's property, placing the school employee or, up a little bit. Up a little bit more. There we go. Placing the school employee or student in reasonable fear of harm to the school employee or student's physical or emotional well-being or damage to the school employee's or student's property. And then down a little bit more, Sybil, creating a hostile, threatening, humiliating, or abusive educational environment due to the pervasiveness, persistence, or severity of the actions, or a power differential between the bully and the target, or substantially interfering with the student having safe environment that's necessary to facilitate educational performance, opportunities, or benefits. Cyberbullying means using the internet, a cell phone, or another device to send or post text, video, or an image with the intent or knowledge or with reckless disregard. Where the text, video, or image will hurt, embarrass, or threaten an individual, regardless of whether the individual directed, consented to, or acquiesced in the conduct or voluntarily accessed the electronic communication. No, I can't. And I can speak to the motion
But it was.
if there is a second.
Yes, we have a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead. Thank you, Board Member Lear. Go ahead and speak to the motion.
Yeah, originally, in our committee discussions, we had the term doxing here and thought that that was encompassing the kind of behavior that might result from this instance, I guess. So the complaint process shouldn't be used to dox. At the recommendation and request of staff, I think that we need to explain. Doxing really is just talking about private personal information. We just don't want abuse of the complaint process. And I would be open to trying to trim down Utah Code 53G 9601 so that doesn't have to be read to everyone, but I'm not sure how to do that.
Could just reference it, maybe. Do we have, so we have another person to speak to the motion, Board Member Earl?
I think we're I mean, it's excessive here. I think there's no reason why we can't reference the code, reference what bullying and cyberbullying elements are, but to read that whole thing to me is too much. And then, can it be reversed? Can it also be, happen the other way where where parents are being bullied by educators as well? And I know we're addressing that here, but I'm just saying it can't be one-sided. And I know there's the complaint process, but we're actually, yeah. So I feel like it's too much. And then I have some questions when we get to question part of this.
Are you making an amendment?
I'd like to make an amendment to strike everything below bullying that was just added and leave the information there so people can access that.
You want the definitions left.
No, just the reference. Right, I want the rest of it. Yeah, just that. And it could even read, see Utah Code 53, something like that. Yeah, see, yeah.
There's an amendment on the floor to remove everything after cyberbullying. Is that right?
Yeah.
So everything after Utah Code 53G-9-601 also defines bullying and cyberbullying. Everything after that would be removed, correct? Okay, do we have a second? Board Member Klein is a second. Do we have discussion to the amendment? Board Member Straight? Do you want to wait? Your name's on here. Are you waiting for the other one? For the first one, okay. Board Member Hymas?
Just, I wonder if, I do agree that the definitions are important. I'm trying to look up the slide here with Jim to see if the definitions are on the slide. I do think it would be very difficult for a trainer to have to read all of that, but it's not. It is
While
not
you're
on the
looking
slide.
at that, shall I go to Board Member Lear and then come back to you?
Well, I don't
While
know
you
if it's
think
necessary
through
to
an
come back.
amendment?
I just wondered if it was on the slide, if it would be worth putting on a slide somewhere where the presenter didn't have to read all of that definition.
Oh, put the written words on.
Right, or if it's another slide, but I do
just give
agree
him a
with Member
second
Earl,
to
so
read it.
I would speak to her motion in saying we don't want to have the presenter read all of that, but I do agree with Member Hanson that it's valuable information. That's true, that's true.
It's not that they're going to fuck them because they.
Thank you,
So
thank you.
so we have an amendment on the floor?
No, I don't have an amendment. I was kind of
To
just speaking
include
to
the
that.
writing, but not the,
Well, can we amend
Voice.
can we amend the slide? Because right now we're talking about the slide notes. That's why I don't have an amendment.
so, all right, would you like to make an amendment so that the written words are included on the slide, but not read by the trainer? No, our AAGs are saying, no, you probably would not like to make that amendment.
No, I would not.
Okay, then, Board Member Klein.
And I keep going back and forth. I think it needs to go, something needs to be put in that shows that it goes both ways. That neither the parent or the educator can be attacking the other in the process.
Are you
Instead of-
making an amendment?
Yes, if there's a way to do that. I'm not sure how to do that. Well, and in the slide, it talks about, it says this rule should not be used by parents or groups of parents in instances that amount to harassing teachers or school administrators. So it would need to be on the slide as well.
Board
And it
Member Klein,
continues-
I may have made a mistake. You may have to make that in just a minute because it's not actually amending
Okay,
the amendment to the amendment.
okay,
So I think we need to vote on
sure.
the amendment to the amendment first and then come back and make another amendment. So, Board Member Earl? Board Member Lear, sorry.
That's Freudian, but I think this is a unique statute in that it protects teachers. And I think it would be an important, I understand, I hear what you're saying, Jenny, Jim, Natalie, about repeating, it's a lot of statute to read. But, and an amendment might be including, that, where you say, where we say above that, including protecting teachers from bullying or educators from bullying or something to that effect. And though I hear what you're saying also about protecting parents, this is actually in the code in terms of protecting teachers. And I think it is an important thing to have teachers, brought to teachers' attention, that they have a right to that protection for the Utah code. So I would either, although it's unusual, support keeping it in, or under the, right after the phrase that said something about a little bit higher up, as mentioned, the parents should not use the complaint process or other means to dox, bully an educator, and then put consistent with Utah law right there. And if you want to shorten it. So I'm in favor of keeping a strong reference to protection of educators in there.
Are you?
I
don't think she can, because she amended his amendment. It has to be a new.
Then I support it the way it is. If I can't amend it, then I would support it the way it is.
Oh, there is one more, because that's a motion, not an amendment. So you can make an amendment to her amendment. But prior to that, we're going to hear a comment from Deputy Superintendent Norman.
Deputy Superintendent Norman, the one thing I wanted to remind the board of is that tomorrow in the Standards and Assessment Committee meeting, we will be going over the vocabulary. These are words that are listed on that vocabulary document with these definitions and as stated in right here as well. So I just wanted to remind everyone that that is a piece of this as well.
And that's an appendix.
Would you accept?
I mean, this,
Yeah, I'm fine, I'm out of line, I think, to do it, but I think we're fine to condense it like this. I think it is unwieldy to have all that sketched out. And Patty brings up a great point, that in our vocabulary document, it references the code and has an excerpt from the code. And I think on this one for bullying, I believe it lists the whole code section, because that's so specific about everything. So I think that's all called out in that document. Is that right, Jeff?
Director Van Holten.
Yes, and I do want to point out here on this slide that the Standards and Assessment Committee did pass putting the definition for abusive conduct completely in verbatim from code, which is why the others were just copied and pasted in as well. So you might want to think about if you're going to define some terms versus not others, all or none, but I just wanted to point that out.
If I can just respond on that one.
Please, Chair Hansen.
I think abusive conduct, that statute is much more concise and kind of covered the overall thing. So I'm fine with keeping the abusive conduct in as we had it, and then shortening per the amendments to where we just have a reference to the code and state cyberbullying and bullying.
Okay, so you are speaking for the amendment
I would
to the
speak- well, I
motion?
don't- we have 2 amendments up there, I think, right now. Is that right?
What about?
Wait, do we have an amendment? We just have a motion and an amendment.
Oh, okay, so,
So you're speaking to the amendment, Chair Hansen?
yes, I'll speak.
Okay,
I'll speak to the amendment and say that I believe that's fine, and I believe the direction we were going, where we had consistent with Utah law, and then just bring up the line that Jenny had to that. If that's a friendly amendment, that would give us the reference to the code, let people know it's in Utah law. Teachers can look it up, they'll have the reference.
so board member Lear, I see you nodding, so do you not want to make an amendment to the amendment now?
If what you're going to do is add the Utah code reference there, consistent with Utah law.
Can you use your microphone, please?
defines.
Consistent with Utah law. And then we've got to get consistent with section 53G-9-601. Then I think that would be.
Is that what?
That I would,
Okay.
yes, that's the amendment I would make to the amendment.
Okay, great, thank you. Board Member,
That is an amendment to the amendment?
oh, you're making an amendment to the amendment?
I would add that to,
The amendment?
I would,
Oh, it's not
No.
601. though.
It's not
I
601.
thought it
he's
was
saying.
601. Oh, no, it's not 601. It's the one about employee, consistent with Utah law 601. Scroll down,
Down below, you got the reference.
613. No, where's the talk about employee bullying?
While you are finding that, might I get Board Member Klein's comment?
It is 601. 601 defines all of those. It does.
Okay.
She can't, she's got to wait for that one because there's a motion, an amendment to the amendment.
I know, so Board Member Klein is just.
Got to wait, okay. Okay. Oh, the other, she's still waiting.
But she can comment, can't she?
Well,
She's just waiting.
she's just waiting. So, Board Member Lear, do we have, can you restate the amendment to the amendment so we can get it on record?
That we delete the text of 53G-9-601 and instead put the reference to it following the paragraph that begins as mentioned on this slide. Pardon me?
It's there.
Yes, it wasn't though.
It wasn't a different color.
Okay, do we have a second? We have Board Member Straight is a second. I've got Board Member Straight up, but do you want to speak to it, Carol, or?
No, I think
We'll
it-
move to
it
Board
just
Member Straight.
simplifies but calls out the employee protection adequately.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to this amendment to the amendment? Please, Chair Huntsman.
It's the amendment, can I only, am I limited to speak only what's in the green?
Yes.
So I have a question for our attorneys regarding the being consistent with Utah law, section 53G-9-601. Do we, as a body, have a right? I'm really concerned about, as mentioned on this slide, parents should not, it could be shall not, may not. Can we, or do we have the authority to give that direction to parents? And or be calling it out, or are we the legislature, are we creating new law, or, I'm curious, because I'm trying to think through the training and presentation on this. No, I
Thank
don't
you.
know too many parents that's going to be sitting in the training unless they somehow invite themselves. I'm just kind of
Chair Hansen.
concerned.
Right, we had this discussion in the committee and talked about, we certainly can't control parents. It says parents should not, and each of the LEAs is going to be developing a complaint process. In that complaint process, they can certainly put something in there that says, this process should not be used to dox, bully, cyberbully, and that can be written in there, so when the parents reference the complaint process, it says, hey, I shouldn't do this. What the parents do, though, is up to them. I don't think we have
So,
any
can I
control
follow
over
up?
that.
So I'm not seeing that as direction to the LEAs to have assurances that that's in one of their internal policies. So there's a assumption it's going to be there, but it's not that they shall, so I'm just trying to figure out how
This isn't a
that.
rule, this is just training, and so none of this is a shall. This is training on what the rule means, and it says,
But
you know,
I'm just going back to the
complaint process
parent
shouldn't
part
be
of
used
it.
to-
The intent is that parents don't do this. And in order to push the water to the end of the roll, how is our education community going to do that without having every parent
I think,
into that training? Or is there a requirement to make sure that there's something, that part just
I think we
confuses me. And
reference-
so I'm just curious, do we have that authority to direct parents? And that's what I wanted our AGs to weigh in on.
After we do we're going to hear from our AAGs, but after we hear the amendment, vote on the amendment to the amendment and the amendment, and Board Member Klein's amendment, we could make an amendment if you're saying to add language where, up there where it says, parents should be provided information on local processes for complaints and covered on the previous slide, and suggested blah, blah, blah. So that it's suggested
So
in
my
their
question goes
policies.
back to the
Not a,
is it consistent with Utah law, section 53G-9-601, that parents should not use the complaint process? Because that's what I'm reading. That's my concern is, we have this paragraph.
It's not.
And we're saying consistent with the law, and I don't.
because that law is for students and employees toward.
So it's misleading. It's
No,
like it's
actually, no, it
already
does
in the
say a
law.
parent.
Sorry,
in
look
it.
at
So I'm-
It
601
does
and
say
it
a
I'm
parent.
sorry.
says conduct of a parent.
It does
I
say a
apologize.
parent.
Sorry, that's just I just think
I missed
this will
that.
get hijacked in some things saying, hey, that part's not in, in this Utah law, section 53G-9-601, or is it?
But
that
it
was
is
my
there.
question.
We just found, it is
Okay.
there. I missed it too.
Okay, it is?
It does, parent is included in that code.
All right, thank you. That
Let's
was
go
my question.
to our, were you going to say the same thing it is in that law of AAG abuse?
Well, I was also going to say, I don't think was to train the parents. It's to make the education community aware of what the rights of the education community are, so that when they're interacting with parents, they're more aware of what their rights are. I don't think it was intended at all to be directed towards parents. Training is not for parents.
Thank you. We have an amendment to the amendment on the floor by Board Member Lear. And that is to add the language consistent with Utah law, section 53G-9-601. Those in favor say aye. Yes, a question? Board Member Earl?
The question was, and I did ask Board Member Hanson about it, but the complaint process, I didn't want us to get, when we're talking, are we talking about a specific process or just in general?
Chair Hansen?
Does that make sense? Because if we're talking about a specific process, then I'm concerned that the specific process we've outlined, parents may be very verbal and concerned, and it may look like doxing, meaning that they're not putting it out in public, but they may be vocally very upset and put something across. Would that be misinterpreted as doxing, and then therefore, do you see what I'm saying? I just want to know if the complaint process is spelled out, and in doing that, even though it's not out in public, it may look a certain way that when it really isn't. It's a voicing, so that's
Thank you. Chair Hansen, can you address that question?
The previous slide, slide 14, I think addresses the complaint process. It goes back to Rule 113, but it also says that, the LEA should have a formal complaint process. That's required by rule, and we're going to amend the rule.
Okay.
And that's, I think,
Thank
already
you.
to the board leadership to amend that rule.
So we have an amendment to the amendment on the floor to add the words consistent with Utah law, section 53G-9-601, and also to strike the words Utah Code 53G-9-601 also defines bullying and cyberbullying.
So,
I
need clarification. If it's language someone doesn't like, is that bullying? You see what I'm saying?
the
If it's
definition
language
is
someone
in the
doesn't like in
code.
the complaint process,
It would just have to read the code, and it could be probably interpreted by different people, different ways. But it's in the code. So those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
what, on the green?
On the green.
On the green.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Lavender agrees, and we will
You need a sweatshirt across the
move.
back. Lavender.
Now we have an amendment on the floor to adopt, or she already, Not if, unless she's amending the amendment. We have to vote on this amendment.
About the amendment?
It's not about this amendment. So we have the amendment on the floor to strike everything, we don't have that anymore, everything after the words, "a single act does not constitute abusive conduct," to strike everything after that. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. We have a motion on the floor to add all of the words in caramel between slide and doxing. Those in favor, say aye. No, is your amendment to do with his original motion? Okay, so those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. That passes with Board Member Earl and Board Member Klein opposed. And Board Member Klein, do you have an amendment?
Yes, I would like to add the language, and I think that this would fit based on the amendments that have been made, just after the line that says doxing or doxing. It would say, educators are also expected, or just are expected, to handle complaints in a professional manner that does not intimidate or cause parents or students to fear retaliation. Want me to read it again? You got it.
No, it's not quite right.
Educators are expected to handle complaints in a professional manner that does not intimidate or cause parents or students to fear retaliation.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the floor? That
You have or case and it should or cause.
we have a motion on the floor to add the words, educators are expected to handle complaints in a professional manner that does not intimidate or cause parents or students to fear retaliation. Blue is a new
Blue,
addition.
what color is it?
It's blue. It really is blue.
No, it has to be blueberry or
It's blueberry. We have blueberry.
caramel, blueberry. pumpkin.
Board Member Hutchings is a second. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Lear.
My concern in that, I embrace the notion. I think it's hard to say, especially the first part, but you can't tell people what they can't tell people not to make people feel a certain way. That troubles me. Because they can just as easily say, I didn't mean to cause parents or students to fear retaliation. I think it would be more effective to say, educators are expected to handle in a professional manner that is not intimidating or retaliatory.
Or that is not.
Then you don't tell people how to feel or suspect you're causing something.
Are you making an amendment to the motion?
I would amend that, yes. That is not intimidating or retaliatory.
Is that a friendly amendment? That is a friendly amendment. Can we write that language into the amendment, the motion, without objection?
Feelings of the other person.
Oh, she wants to.
Lori,
That's such a.
that's an awesome word.
Does this look like what you are thinking?
That's what I intended to say.
Okay,
Retaliatory, yeah.
Retaliatory.
okay. Any more discussion to the amendment as changed in a friendly way?
It's telling you.
Sybil, just put a space in there, if you will, between the doxing.
Seeing none, please vote. Oh, seeing none, please vote. All in favor, say aye.
Just space it down.
Those opposed?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Back to Chair Hansen.
Okay, I move that the board accept the notes for slide 15 as amended. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not doing that. I just dropped it once. Yeah, thank you.
And Board Member Straight is the second. Was this, were you the original second on that motion?
I don't know.
I think we already had a second on that motion, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Thank you for being willing, though. Those in favor say, oh, did we just vote?
Hang on just one minute. Oh, let's vote on this. Can I ask questions before we,
Well, he's moving
the whole slide?
Yeah.
to do the whole slide.
Okay, I do have questions.
Okay,
These are just.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, really quick.
Thank you for humoring me. Can a district retaliate if an employee expresses an issue before the public that they hold beliefs about? In other words, we're talking kind of parent and stuff, but I'm also wondering if there's a retaliatory type of thing, if a educator expresses something contrary to what the LEA. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, this is not about ideas. This is an attack on a person, an individual.
Yeah, there's discrimination and retaliation law already.
I think every district has the same.
Okay, that was one question.
So that's
Next question.
employment law. That's just basic employment law, that part.
Okay. Can an employee compel speech for a teacher?
Small detour. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe this doesn't fall under this. This just made me think of compelled speech for teachers under discriminatory behavior, but. You don't think it fits on this slide? That's what I'm just asking.
I mean, it's a separate First Amendment rights of teachers. I mean, a separate deal that's litigated, but I don't know that it fits here.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
those
vote on
sorry,
this.
I had to ask him.
Let's vote on this slide, please. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was sad.
Those in favor of passing this slide as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Did you have an abstention?
Do we still have?
Do you want to abstain, Board Member Earl?
I don't think so.
Do we still have anti-doxing or did we?
That's
Okay,
removed. Yeah, that's removed.
Well, maybe so. I don't know. It was on one of my looked at, so.
Okay, that passes with Board Member Earl, yes, unanimously. Slide 16.
Board Member Lear in pistachio.
Pistachio.
Hasn't hit her light yet.
Board Member Lear. Can you turn on your?
So I wanted to actually give an example that I felt would be more helpful. And I also wanted to give an example that would illustrate both sides of the spectrum, the political spectrum, which is why I wrote it that way. So you can read it. One example of this could be, and that was, could be the difference between promoting, endorsing, and explaining, discussing, or informing might be the display of how a BLM or a MAGA sign or a flag is used in a classroom. It's certainly more promotional or endorsing to permanently display a MAGA or BLM sign prominently and for an extended period, more that if you're going to ask me what an extended period is, than to use a MAGA or BLM flag or sign as a visual aid in a single classroom discussion. Period. The point being that if you give students an assignment about a current event, one of them might bring one of those flags, which should be just fine. But if it's displayed for days at a time or 2 weeks at a time, that's endorsing and promoting. So I just wanted to give them an example that covered both ends of the spectrum.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the language in green on slide 16 with a second by Board Member Straight. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Hymas.
I'm looking at these, and maybe it's not relevant, but like, are these examples gonna be outdated? We move so fast, I feel like, is this a long-lasting example? Or is there somewhere else that we need to reword this somehow? If I'm honest with you, I think BLM will outlast MAGA. if I'm honest. I'm not choosing a side. I'm just, do you know what I mean? Like, in 4 years,
Then your point's well taken. Can I think of an example?
well, and that's what I'm wondering
A
if,
special interest group flag or something like that, or a symbol of a.
Or a Confederate flag or a. No, Confederate flag.
but you see my point.
I do, but I also think it's really important to.
Okay.
You're not on mic, so people can't hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Belknap, for doing my,
May I-
my,
May I ask a
yes, Chair
question
Hansen.
to the discussion? So I understand the need to be more generic, I guess, and have this be long-lasting, but the danger in getting too generic is that people find all kinds of loopholes in that. The example loses its power if we don't have some kind of specifics in there and say, hey, this is a situation, a real-life situation, this is what we think about that situation. So I don't know how to, I'm fine with it as is, and if we need to update this, we probably will in a year or two, next year, the year after, we'll be updating the rule and the training. I know we have that to look forward to. But I think there's a danger in making it too generic, because then there's too many loopholes.
Thank you. Board Member Belknap?
I also would say the other thing, making it too specific is also a problem, because they'll say, well, that wasn't mentioned. So I think it's a.
One example.
One example.
Yeah, could do something like that.
One example of this might, I think it's personally.
Board Member Lear?
Pistachio scarf on
Yeah,
there.
I think one thing that this training, I think these examples are very helpful to the teachers. I think that not giving them as many examples as we might, it is not helping them understand what could be coming up. So I think, I hope we would revise this if the meaning of these two acronyms is lost. But we shouldn't be that far behind the 8 ball, and the staff could update the examples. I personally, I hear Matt's concern, but I think being helpful maybe is more important in the moment than making this eternal.
Thank you. Deputy Superintendent Norman?
It's Deputy Superintendent Norman. One of the things that I would request is if we're using either of those examples, that we use the words and not the acronyms, or use them both, because if someone's narrating this, it's hard to say the word MAGA, and what does that make sense, or and what that means. So if we could use the words along.
That's a great idea. I would support that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Board Member Straight?
Yes. So I just wanted to back up this general concept. Just remember that one of the things that we have been told from those in the education field is that they wanted examples. And so this backs that up, and I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Board Member Hutchings?
Could I just suggest that we move the example at the end of number 2 and before number 3? It seems to fit better there for me.
That would not bother me.
That seems to be one of those movement changes that doesn't change anything substantively. Are you okay with that, Chair Hansen?
No problem.
Okay, let's not make that as an amendment, just a note for those who are making the document. Board Member Earl?
Yeah, I think the original language was very simple. If we need to add an additional, if we need to add MAGA to that, I think that's fine. I just think this gets so complicated. Anyways, I'd speak against this and maybe make an amendment towards adding that other example in our simplicity. Can I do that now or after this is done? We need to vote on this, right?
We have a motion, and do we have an amendment? So you can make an
Carol's is the
amendment to
original
the
motion.
amendment. Oh, if hers is the original motion?
I
then
would
you can
vote
make an
against this and
amendment.
then because otherwise it it would be striking all kinds of stuff and then adding.
So
yeah,
are you making amendment or speaking against the motion?
I'm speaking against this motion, so I can make
Okay.
another motion. I'm just
Okay.
indicating it to the crowd.
Okay. Okay. Board Member Straight.
So thinking back to what used to be there, I really felt that we had too many examples that were very much like each other. And this breaks it up. It makes it a little more broad in the definition, at the same time being very specific. So I like the changes, and I think it's better than the previous language.
What language is being taken out, might I ask? When you say better than the previous language, I see the addition, but what's being removed?
I think it was about a pride flag before.
Why is it off here?
Was that something that was already done in committee or something?
No, I think that Carol's edit might have taken out some of that language. No, I understand. I think it was inadvertent, but I think there was, I mean, it doesn't, if you just take out your language, it doesn't read right. And it did read right before, so.
No, I just tried to expand
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to read what's in the original, and we'll see if this is, Board Member Straight is saying this would replace maybe an amendment to the motion, but let's find out what it said before that we're missing on our screen. Go ahead. Jenny Earl needs to be on. Master controller.
So it says, an example of this could be on what it means to promote over another or endorse. BLM or pride flag may be appropriate during one-day discussion or on a relevant topic, but is not appropriate when posted permanently in a prominent place in the classroom. So we could add that's the original. We've kind of lost. I think this gets more complicated, but we can add one more example here, which I think would be appropriate. If this doesn't pass.
Okay. I'm just so confused because in the thing, we're asking people not to be political.
Yeah, we're asking
then-
them not to be political, but we're being political.
But they're going to take turns putting all the different flags. I don't know. Board Member Lear, your light is still on. Are you?
Yep, it doesn't need to be a flag. I just was looking, every example is about being gay or LGBTQ or a pride flag. I was looking for an example that would show the continuum, a political perspective from both ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
So, and if you've got a better example, but I think that if somebody's reading this and they absolutely could become, what's the word I'm looking for? Gender identity phobic.
Okay. So,
She just, Carol's
so the amendment is the motion, Board Member Lear, to use this language instead of the other language.
It was, though, I gotta say, I didn't intentionally.
Okay, but that's the intention now, and you have had a second on that. So there's a motion on the table to strike the previous example, which we actually don't see, but Board Member Earl read, and use the green language on slide 16. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. That passes with Board Member Klein and Board Member Earl opposed. Oh, were you opposed, Board Member Moss?
He was trying to be stealth.
And Board Member Moss? And Board Member Chair Huntsman?
just make another motion to.
Let's go back then to, no, do you have another amendment? Board Member Earl? Is it already in the sheet?
No?
Okay.
I would just make a motion that we add pride to that as well. So the pride flag, or however we're putting that in, one additional just example.
Isn't that what we just took out? We just vote to take that out? There's a motion on the floor to add the pride flag back in Where would that be, Board Member Earl?
That to different color.
All right, there is a motion on the floor to add the words in purple to slide six, was it, we're on 16? 16, do we have a second? Was that Board Member Hymas? Board Member Hymas, thank you. Discussion to the motion, Board Member Lear.
Why, Jenny? What does that add for you?
Please.
I just think these are things we're seeing. And I think if we're trying to be specific enough, then it's things we're consistently seeing. And if there is another one to the other side, I don't have a problem with adding that too. So I just think these are the primary ones we're seeing consistently, so.
Okay, did we have a second on that? Okay. Okay, seeing no other discussion, there's a motion on the table to add the words in purple into slide 16. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Let's take a roll call vote. Board Member Belknap?
No.
Board Member Booth? Oh, he said he was going to join
What is
by.
wrong with him?
He said he was
He's not
going to
answering ever.
join by Zoom.
I know, I'm just saying he's not answering.
Okay, is he on Zoom? Have I been missing
No.
him?
He hasn't
He was
been.
on for a minute, he had to drop off.
Okay, then no, absent. Board Member Cannon? No. Board Member Klein? Yes. Board Member Earl?
Yes.
Board Member Hanson?
Yes.
Board Member Hart?
No.
Board Member Chair Huntsman? No. Board Member Hutchings? No. Board Member Hymas? Yes. Board Member Lear? No. Board Member Moss? No. Board Member Norton? No. Board Member Straight?
No.
That motion fails with Board Members Klein and Earl and Hymas voting yes.
I voted yes as well.
And Hanson. Wrong. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. So let's go back then to the motion.
So back to me. I move that the board adopt the speaker notes for slide 16 as amended.
There's a motion on the floor to move forward slide 16 as amended. With a second by Board Member Cannon. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Board Member or Chair Hanson.
No?
No, Huntsman.
Huntsman. The two of you have the last names. 2 syllable, both starts with H. Oh, my goodness. Okay,
Okay.
slide 17.
Yeah, final motion, I move that the board adopt meeting notes speaker notes for a final additional slide 17 that concludes the presentation.
Yes, and this is an amendment by, or a motion by Board Member Hutchings, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was my pumpkin color. Is this?
Well, you're not pumpkin, you're caramel, so I wish you would stay in your own color lane, please. But we are moving over to, gold now.
Yeah, my problem.
Gold.
Okay.
Board Member
Go
Hutchings.
back to gold. I'm sorry
is
for stealing
gold.
your thunder.
It's okay. Actually,
It's my
I
fault.
think
I
it
turned
works
to you.
better if we switch the sentences. During this training, we covered, read the slide. This brings the training to a conclusion, period.
There's a motion on the table to add a slide 17. During this training, we covered with the language from the slide, and then ending with, this brings the training to a conclusion. Do we have a second? Board Member Straight, is the second. Thank you. Board Member Earl, would you like to discuss this? Okay, Board Member Lear.
I just have another question
Okay.
related to.
Board Member Lear first has a question, right? Oh, no, are you waiting till after this discussion to this motion?
I'm fine about, I'm fine.
The motion? Okay, Board Member Hart?
I just wonder if you'd accept a friendly amendment to say just thank you.
Thanks for listening and being
With no objection, we will add the words "thank you" to the end. Is that where you want it? Thank you at the end? Thank you.
No exclamation point.
Okay, any other discussion to the motion? On 17, yes. Seeing none, please vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Do we have a question from Board Member Earl?
Okay, I have a question, I apologize. I did bring chocolate on number 8. I have a question, maybe amendment, but I want to just get a clarification.
What kind of chocolate?
Well, it's almost gone. I don't know if it's, look over there quick.
Was that you that brought that? Thank you.
Yes,
I can't be that easily bought, right?
you could, please. I'm just kidding. I do have a question on this, so on slide 8, under 7, it says this language comes from a portion of the rule. Anyways, it talks about impartiality. But then our example at the bottom, it says, one example of demonstrating appropriate role model responsibilities would be using the sources to compare capitalism and Marxism. Is there an impartiality we're supposed to have towards those? If that's our example, is this what we want to use? And I just wonder if we could do something like discuss presidential candidates or social media and censorship, something like that. I'm just kind of throwing out to the body. Because if we're talking about impartiality, it doesn't work in this case. Right?
Please, Chair Huntsman.
Voted on, if I remember right, we can go back in there in order to bring it back. Within Robert's rules, the prevailing side can make a motion to bring back a previous motion, because that was a motion.
That was a motion in the full board or in the
No, we voted,
committee?
yeah, we did.
No, we voted on, we did vote on that.
Okay.
I'd like
Just
to
for the
make a
point of order.
motion that we bring this slide back.
And you were on the prevailing side? Okay, there's a motion to bring back slide 8 for discussion. All those, do we have a second? Board Member Klein, second. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That motion passes with Board Member Cannon saying no.
Very weak.
Okay, go, Board Member Earl.
I would like, I don't know if discussion or just can make if there's a preference there, but I do think the impartiality isn't relevant here. So, and I don't know what the group's preference is, if it's sources to compare social media or censorship, or discuss presidential candidates. Those are 2 options that I would maybe recommend, just kind of, if I could get some feedback. Otherwise, I'll just make a motion for one of those.
I like presidential candidates.
Okay, because I think it hits that area.
Political candidates.
So I would recommend that we
Or
change.
political candidates, how about that?
Political candidates.
In this rule, we asked them to stay away from politics. But I guess that would fit this.
No, this example's right on.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think.
okay.
They need to be neutral when they're talking.
All right, let's go. for
I
it.
would make a
Board Member
motion
Earl.
that we strike compare capitalism and Marxism and insert discuss,
That's better, because we do have.
what did you say, political candidates.
Okay.
Discussing political candidates.
Do we have a second? Were you still second, Board Member Klein? There's a motion on the board to remove capitalism and Marxism and replace it with political candidates to discuss political candidates in slide 8. Yeah, how are you going to use original sources?
Well, their own writing.
Yeah.
Their
that's
own
true.
websites or
Biography
writing or
and
something?
that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, please vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Board Member Lear, did you have another one or question?
I do. And I don't know how to fix this in the moment because I don't think necessarily I don't know who voted on the opposing side or the prevailing side. But in the final slide, the summary slide, and I'm trying to pull it up right now, I just lost it.
That's right.
It talks about teachers and academic freedom. Academic freedom is not a K-12 concept. Academic freedom is a higher ed concept, and we don't want to give teachers the impression they have academic freedom. They don't.
no.
They work for the district, they work for the LEA. And so
Where is that, Carol?
it's right
Right
in the
there,
middle
yeah.
of teachers. It's preserve academic freedom. And so I want teachers, I think teachers should be able to use words of their choice for appropriate age students. But academic freedom is a term of art that doesn't apply to K-12s. I attached a really good short article from Kaplan Magazine.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Board Member Lear, are you making a motion?
I can't because I didn't vote on the prevailing side.
I voted on the prevailing side. I'd like
Okay.
to make a motion to open up slide 17 for
Would be,
discussion.
we
You
can't.
can't open up slides.
The slides aren't on the agenda.
Yeah.
The notes are on the agenda.
Okay. Someone needs to.
No, we talked about it, but they said because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that another placeholder. I just think that's a
We need to
Okay.
put that, yes.
Can-
troubling for teachers.
Yep. Can we fix that in the notes for this slide and say, because I think the intent was to let them choose their lesson plan more than academic freedom. We used the wrong words. But can we fix that in the notes right now
So where are the
practically?
notes in this?
So we have notes for that slide.
So maybe we can, to be clear,
Can define it.
at least for now.
Something, can I make a motion?
Pardon? That's anybody.
Okay, we all voted.
It's not
we all
in the
voted
notes
for
in
it.
the slide.
It's not in
There's
there
no
at all
notes in
now.
slide
Notes.
17.
So, but it's not on 17, is it?
Oh,
Yeah. That's the
yes.
last one.
In slide 17, part of the motion was to read the slide. So we can add language in when they read the slide and say academic freedom like
Well,
this and this, but
I
not.
have a suggestion. Academic freedom for purposes of this training or discussion means, and then the language
Lesson plan and whatever other language.
means, that teachers have a right to choose language and words appropriate for the curriculum content, the age of the students, and the nature of the discussion, but they are bound by the curriculum of their LEA or something like that. I don't know of which side I voted on.
Yeah, you did.
Did I?
Everybody but Janet.
Okay, then I voted on the curriculum.
So do we have that written down somewhere
It's.
so we know what we're?
You mean, do you want me to say it again? It's just, I'm changing from my amendment, thinking that I could amend the slide. So I'm
So someone has to open up.
revising.
But what since we can't amend the slide, we can amend what is said
So
about the slide.
notes, and the notes could say, for purposes of this discussion or training,
Wait, someone's got to write this down. Tuck,
Jeff is on it,
okay.
not PERPOS.
Thank you, Director Van Holten.
That's got to be in Carol's color.
We must have pistachio
For,
to keep everyone straight.
or for the purposes of this rule.
I think the
I
other
don't
one's
think,
already down the road.
for the purposes of this rule means,
Out to-
Do you need us to open
I don't
the
think we
slide?
need to say,
Did we vote to?
Yes, for purposes of this training.
You
that
moved to open it, didn't you?
I made the accidental motion to.
means respecting a
Slide.
teacher's
Now
right
I
to choose
need to
language, word,
move
notes,
to open the
curriculum.
notes.
Okay, we have a motion. Board Member Hart.
I
Quotes,
moved
academic
to
freedom.
open the notes for slide 17.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Board Member Hanson, Chair Hanson. We have a motion on the floor to open slide 7, the notes for slide 17. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously.
And I'm trying to think at the end. Is that clear enough? I could,
Now, do we have it written? There's
yeah, I'm just thinking that something at the end, maybe to emphasize a teacher is, a teacher must follow the LEA's selected curriculum or,
They choose the lesson plan, but it has to fit within the curriculum.
I don't know exactly where you draw the line, but there are an
Could say the approved curriculum content.
The approved curriculum,
That's what it is. though.
yeah.
They develop their own lesson,
Uh-huh.
fit the curriculum.
Could you, just to make it shorter, just put approved? Now we're
Remember the
wordsmithing.
teacher,
Oh, I was so committed not to
Remember, the teacher
wordsmith.
must follow the approved
The
LEA.
very last second, at the
Yeah.
11th hour, we were wordsmithing.
It's not quite the 11th hour, but it's getting close.
The 11th hour of this particular section, because in a second, I'm going to turn this gavel over and go get a Diet Coke. So it's my 11th hour. Yes. Did you have a question, Board Member Klang?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
So academic freedom, to the extent that they stick within the parameters of this rule, like the parameters set up in this rule so that this doesn't just become a nullification clause of the rule that has just been trained on. Does that make sense? The rule gives parameters that teachers have to stay within. And then if we end by saying academic freedom, you can teach whatever you want, it could be viewed as nullifying everything that they were just trained on.
Do you have an amendment?
But we don't have a motion yet, so.
That's not what.
No.
Purposes of this rule.
For purposes of this rule is sort of again, another term of art that means as it applies to this rule.
Yeah.
Board Member Lear, do you have a motion?
Well, I already put the motion up there in pistachio.
But you didn't make it formally because we hadn't opened the slide
I move
yet.
that we add to slide number 17, or no, to the notes on slide number 17, academic freedom, capital A, academic freedom for the purposes of this rule means, and then respecting a teacher's, I don't know that we need a colon, but respecting a teacher's right to choose language and words appropriate for the curriculum content, the age of the students, and the nature of the discussion, remembering that a teacher must follow the approved LEA curriculum. Or
And
either
state
comma,
standards.
remembering, or and remembering, so you've got either a comma after discussion.
And the
Yes,
contents of this
remembering
rule.
that a teacher must follow. Or recognizing is maybe recognizing rather than remembering, Jeff, sorry.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that we add the language in green to slide to the notes for slide 17. Do we have a second? Board Member Straight, do you have a speak? Board Member Earl? Go ahead.
And this rule, curriculum, and this rule. At the very end. Well, the-
328.
it's
right?
328.
That's
Say and R 277-327.
We can reference the rule. Is that friendly, or do I need to?
It
make
just
it a
doesn't mean
motion?
anything to teachers, but you could name the rule, you could put the name of the rule. But name the name of the rule. Whenever I say that, people look at me like, I don't know what that number means.
Oh, then put the title of the rule. That's a non-sub change. Then put the title of the rule after the rule number.
And this R277328? This rule, comma?
At the top, it says academic freedom for the purposes of this, oh, she changed it to training. All right, so we're leaving the numbers.
And then,
Because this
Just so I
isn't,
can add it
this
later
isn't going to
if-
be
oh.
visual.
oh,
This is just going to be the language. This is just the language.
I know, I just was saying he could put it in.
But then if you do that, it means the animator's going to have to say R277-328 educational equity in schools. Is that fine? Is that what you want?
Yeah, that's fine.
This is a lot of wordsmithing. We're totally not following parliamentary procedure, but let's go ahead and vote. We have a motion on the table. Chair Huntsman.
I'm just wondering if we have the correct emoji on there.
If that signifies the end, then yes. We have a
That looks
motion.
like me. Are you picking on me? Or is we representing everybody with that smiley face? I'm out of order.
We have a motion on the table to add the language in green to slide 17. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? This passes unanimously, and I have been dying to quote this end of this slide, which says, "This brings the training, the meeting, this particular section to a conclusion." Thank you.